feel like Kobe in the fourth quarter.
This is the DaneMoore NBA podcast, and we are brought to you by Prize Picks. Coming to you Friday morning. It's December 5th. I've got Kyle Theige here with me for the Friday pod. Not for a game recap of the Wolves' win over the Pelicans on Thursday night. Chris and I covered that in detail at the stadium last night. You can go back one episode in your feed for that. This is kind of more your weekend episode. The next episode will not be until Monday morning. So what we're going to do for this is Kyle and I are going to do a 5 things episode. We've been doing these kind of, I don't know, maybe every 2-3 weeks of sort of more so player specific things that maybe tell a bigger story rather than just what happened. Like, for example, one of the things we have down, I think everybody kind of knows the stat, but the Wolves are 11-0 in the 11 games that Jaylen Clark has played more than 14 minutes in the season, which means they're 3-8 when he doesn't play. Just kind of sometimes with those numbers, they're a trend, but it's worth digging into what exactly that all means. So got 5 of those things. Not sure exactly what order we're going to get to them. Kyle actually put most of these together. Thank you for doing that. But yeah, happy Friday. How are you?
I'm doing well. This is, I think, the third Wolves recap. Every pay stub, every payday we've done since the season started, we've done one of these. So it's kind of fun to over the last 2 weeks, what has happened. Also, I just want to say at the top that you and Chris Hine being on the road this week, I never got to fully share my thoughts on this whole media conversation in sports in 2025, but having you guys there and having all the clips that you've had post-game and pre-game, and some of the clips, I think this might be a clip-heavy podcast, but has really added to the fan experience. Or if you are making content, you're writing blogs, doing videos, doing podcasts, it's nice to have boots on the ground or beats on the ground. So appreciate you. Appreciate Chris. I know you spent your whole week in New Orleans devouring beignets and watching very little defense, but I thought there was a couple things since we last spoke, the last time we did a podcast. I think we tried to burn down the organization after they had lost to the Suns and the Kings. So
that was our last episode. Jeez.
Yeah. And so then I spent a week watching a lot of games with my dad, and he is an old dude, but he has a unique perspective on it, just like I think Britt or others do. So yeah, I had a couple topics that I thought were either things that really need to be talked about or things that we haven't talked about yet. So yeah. I'm excited. Do you want me just to pick the first one off the top of the list?
You choose. First overall pick.
We're not talking about Donte DiVincenzo enough. There has been a lot of talk about Anthony Edwards. We reviewed Jace's article. Since then, he has become, except for last night in game 2 against the Pelicans, has been awesome. We've talked about Julius Randle. We've talked about the defense, all this stuff. I think Donte DiVincenzo this morning is 8th in the league in plus minus. I think he has the best net rating on the team, which obviously single player net rating is a little noisy, but he has, as my dad calls him, I know this is probably where I get it from, Dane, the big red glue, because he is the glue guy. He is, when we asked in October, who is going to replace all the stuff that Nickeil Alexander-Walker does? Is it TJ? Is it Jaylen? Is it Rob? It's actually Donte. And I think there's moments where you see him turn the ball over, be a little lax with a pass. He still can't always get to the rim, but he's firing 12 threes a game. But I just think his winning plays, I really do think he is on a team that needs more production from role players, glue guys, whatever. Donte DiVincenzo, after what happened last year, and he was pretty vocal about the trade 2 days before media day messed me up. Year 2, we said this in October, buy that stock. I think he's having an incredible season on a team that doesn't have a true point guard. He's trying to figure out how to play next to a lead guard and Ant, but I just think first and foremost, these last 2 weeks have reminded me that he is having a huge season and is kind of looking like what we were sold on 14 months ago, the prize of the Karl-Anthony Towns trade. They've got that now in Donte, and I think his second year with the team has just been awesome.
Yeah, you put in the notes to me a bounce back season for Donte, and I was like, oh yeah, so bounce back. That was the only season. So what is he bouncing back to? But he's bounced back to New York form.
Yeah.
I like to use, I think the best catch-all metric, understanding that catch-all metrics are in perfect. My favorite is offensive estimated plus minus, defensive estimated plus minus, overall estimated plus minus. It's just kind of clean. It gives you a percentile of where you rank offensively in the league, defensively overall in the league. And Donte DiVincenzo has been 91st percentile in offensive estimated plus minus this season. That's only behind Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle in that category on this team. They're both 95th percentile. And we know the seasons that they're having from an efficiency and offensive standpoint. So yeah, Donte's next highest at the team at 91st percentile. Jaden's the next highest at like 65. So talking about he's been the third most impactful offensive player on this team this season. And it's a bounce back because last season Donte was 74th percentile in that category, which was behind guys like behind guys like Nas and some others there. But if you go to New York, that his final season there, 91st percentile offensive estimated plus minus. It is back at that level. Obviously I didn't watch every one of those Knicks games, but I did a good bit of watching him after they made that trade for him 14 months ago. And as I was thinking about this morning, like, yeah, this is what Donte DiVincenzo looked like in New York as a volume 3-point shooter, as a glue guy, as it turns it over sometimes. I mean, imperfect, little small defense, like some of those things. I'm not saying he's an all-star or anything like that, but I think they are getting the production efficiency impact of the player they thought they were trading for 14 months ago, the jewel of the Karl Anthony Towns trade, the piece that kind of made them go, well, if it's Julius Randle and Donte DiVincenzo at contracts that they're on, maybe then we're willing to give up Karl Anthony Towns. So I think it's good for you to pull us back into Donte and to recognize what it is, because it is a little bit of the Nickeil stuff where, you just look at per game averages and stuff like that. It might not blow you away, but when you're watching the team night after night and you're maybe seeing what some of the guys are doing when he's not on the floor, you kind of see that delta, that impact that Donte has when he's out there comparatively to the other guys.
And to me specifically, it's not about like a made three or if he goes 5 for 12 or whatever. It's the plays that stick out in my mind were they absolutely lose that first Pelicans game if he doesn't chase down, I think it was Alvarado, and have that weird kind of poke check steal with 42 seconds left, but there was 16 seconds on the shot clock. Like the Pelicans in that first game probably try to milk the clock, get a shot off. The Wolves go back down 4, and then they have to play the foul game. But instead, Donte gets that steal. It leads to that incredibly brave yet risky Jaden McDaniels banker for 2. They got them kind of back in it. But also in that game, I think he had a really timely block on like Fears going to the rim. So all the offensive stuff that you expected from him that you saw in New York, stretching the floor, taking 30-footers, that's been really beneficial. I do think him and Ant, maybe that 2-man chemistry is maybe the 2 that is developing the best or the fastest if you watch them play off each other. Donte, when he got here, had played with Julius enough that he just kind of knew Julius. Like he knew the moods, he knew when to get him the ball. Like if Julius is in the post, it's like I got to give him the ball and then go run around. He's starting to do that with Ant a lot more too, and I think that's helped Ant have a little more freedom. Like when Donte's out there, he knows when those doubles are coming at the half line, like, okay, I got to go help Ant there. There is some chaos still in how they close games. I mean, just blown away by the people that watched last night's game and thought it was terrible. I mean, the last couple of minutes were like pickup ball, but that's just what this team does right now. They don't really have a true point guard out there, so it's Donte and Ant. But big picture, all the little stuff that leads to winning. Last night on the call, Alan and Jim talked about the Wolves just don't have a lot of guys that take charges. And like who would come to mind if you needed someone to take a charge? And like my first reaction was like probably Donte. Like he would be the first overall pick, and he's going to take a charge. He's going to do this little thing that directly leads to winning, even if it isn't always a box score stat. So with all the other guys we've talked about this season, I just think he has really come into his own. They needed that. They couldn't have another year one of Donte if he is the prize of that trade. And I just think he has fit so well next to Ant on a team that I still get very scared. We'll talk about it later. Like doesn't really have a lot of good guards right now. And for him to be this consistent night in and night out, breaks his nose, comes back in, like doesn't miss games, played all 22. I think that's a big thing for this team as they search for more help around Ant.
Two like play specific things. Definitely the poke check thing. I mean, that saved that game.
It won them the game.
Yeah,
I think.
I think one thing that inspired the comeback a bit in the first Pelicans game was, do you remember when he got that offensive rebound? I think it was early in the fourth quarter, and then he kicked it to Ant in the left side corner right there. And they won that game because Ant took over scoring wise in the fourth and in overtime. But I felt like that. I remember in the play, it was kind of like a lethargic play or whatever. Somebody missed a shot, and Donte just comes flying in, grabs this offensive rebound, like all 6'3" of him, and immediately finds Ant in the corner. Ant hits that corner three, starts doing his little guns finger thing, and it was like, here we go. It really, I thought that play really inspired Ant, and sometimes Ant needs like some of those inspirational type of things when, you know, the weight of the fatigue of the things that Ant is being asked to do. I don't think it's like Ant doesn't have the gas in the tank. He just like sometimes someone's got to like hit the ignition a little bit. And, you know, you bring up Nikhil. I felt like Nikhil did that a lot for Ant in previous seasons. And not like Donte didn't last year, but that play has stuck with me, DiVincenzo specific. But also I thought it was interesting when we were talking to Ant about facing double teams after the first game, when we talked to him in the locker room afterwards. And I was like, what sort of like specific things are you guys doing to counteract when teams are going to put two on you in a ball screen action? And he goes, the first thing he said is, we've been running a lot of peel screens with DiVincenzo, which, I mean, you know, my like general stance is I would just like to have the Wolves run like more ball screens for Ant in general. I'd like there to be more of like creating an advantage with a screen type of deal and just getting that to start the possession into an isolation. I don't have a problem with isolation in general, but I'd like there to be something that inspires like the isolation. And it's just never gonna be like a heavy volume of like, here comes the big, he sets the screen, now we roll. That's not a huge part of like what this team does. And frankly, not something you can do like a ton of when they are blitzing those Ant pick and rolls. But what a peel screen is, it's basically like a fake screen there. And Dante's doing it and he peels off of it it's basically like a sped up pop. I don't know, is the way I would put that there. And what Ant said is like, you know, we're running a lot of these peel screens with Donte, and they have to respect Donte peeling off of that for functionally the pop, and I'm attacking the peel quickly. And that's what I'm talking about. Like that, it doesn't need to be like a pick and roll, but just give me that like 1 second it takes for Donte to come over and peel off of that, and then for Ant to attack quickly, right? Now he's got to step on the defender. Maybe even you've got a switch here, and the guy who's guarding Donte is now on Ant up. If they quickly make that switch there's an advantage. That's all. I'm looking for more small advantages for Ant, and that's one small thing, and it uses Dante's most impactful skill set, right? Like the threat of a quick three coming off of there. So it just say that to mean some of these small things, to your dad's Raglu point of
great nickname. Good work, Dad.
It is. Yeah, I do. I've liked that stuff, and I think you got to be maybe watching kind of closely to have a full appreciation for Donte doing those things, but they're definitely happening.
Yeah. And again, this is not shade at anyone in the starting lineup, because Ant's been awesome, and Julius, I think, is an all-star, and Jaden, we'll talk about, as having a leap, and Rudy's kind of flexing on him again. But Donte DiVincenzo is the only person in the starting lineup who's not thinking about his own stats. Like, he is always, and that's kind of as you and I continue to fight online and offline about point guard, help, trade deadline, all this stuff. That is really important for winning teams, to have those type of guys that get that offensive rebound, immediately find Ant, knows when Julius needs a touch, has come in and quickly learned French, right? Like, he's a good lob thrower to Rudy. So, and then back to the cat thing quick, just to kind of close the loop on the Donte stuff. I think he's taken 65. Dante's 7th in the league this morning in threes attempted, like total. He's taken 65 more than Cat has taken. Because that was one of the questions, right? Trading out Cat, Julius Randle's not that level of three-point shooter. How are you going to keep the offense afloat? Well, Donte just shoots 12 a game, and he's shooting 40% right now, or 39.8%. So his confidence looks back too. I mean, last night when it got a little hairy there in those last 2 minutes, I mean, he was taking wide open threes and transition opportunities where you would think maybe we should run the ball and kill the clock. But he's so confident right now. He's like, actually, I'll just put them out of their misery right now with this three. So I think he has not been talked about enough during this first, I guess, quarter of the season. And I think he's had just an integral role in them being what they are in their record. So
same 3-point volume as Ant this year. It's like I was looking at yesterday.
Okay.
It's like, per 36 or per 100. It's the same, like they're identical. And we know, I mean, Ant was one of the highest volume 3-point shooters in the league last season and is again this season. Dante's right up there too. And this team is, I think, third in 3-point percentage, right? Like that's a lot of Ant, but it's literally just as much Donte DiVincenzo as well. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Falling Knife Brewing Company. Shout out to Falling Knife owner Dan Herman for the New Orleans lunch recommendation I had on Wednesday out here. I think literally that was the best sandwich I've ever had. If you're ever out in New Orleans, go to Verta Marte. The only thing that would have made that better would have been a Falling Knife beer with that sandwich. I know you've been hearing about us talk about Second Apron, the beer we partnered with Falling Knife on this season. Clearly, many of you purchased it because the stock is running low. If you do want to get some of those, maybe just to save a can, head over to Falling Knife in the tap room and grab the cans and have the cans that have the podcast logo on them. Or if you're just in Minneapolis, you should be able to find them at your local liquor store. But more than anything, we would just love it if you supported Falling Knife by going into the tap room to watch a game. And this Saturday, the game will be on the projector screen and the sound will be on as the Wolves play the Clippers. Go watch the Wolves amongst other Wolves fans at Falling Knife. Again, as always, supporting these sponsors is what makes this show happen. And we appreciate how many of you do that with Falling Knife. That's Falling Knife Brewing Company in Northeast Minneapolis. Today's show is also brought to you by Prize Picks, and with no Wolves game until Saturday. For today's show, let's do an NFL Prize Picks lineup. I feel like on Sunday, the Bills-Bengals game may be similar to how Cowboys-Lions went last night. So let's make a lineup assuming a shootout in that game. Give me Josh Allen to have more than 237.5 passing yards and for Joe Burrow to have more than 249.5 passing yards. If you want to add more players, let's throw in a Khalil Shakir, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, whatever it is you want to do, go in on that shootout. That's all you need to do at Prize Picks to make a lineup is pick 2 or more players to go more or less than on a statistic. The more players you put in your lineup, the higher the potential payout. Take a peek this weekend and put yourself together a Prize Picks lineup for a football Sunday. There's only a few Sundays left. If you don't yet have a Prize Picks account, all you got to do, you know the drill. Use the promo code Dane when you sign up, and you will receive $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. That's prizepicks.com or the Prize Picks app using promo code Dane when you create your account as well. Where do you want to go next?
I mean, this the second one, as we talk about Ant a lot and we talk about Julius a lot. I don't know if we've talked about Jaden McDaniels enough, and we hinted at a couple games early, and then when Ant went out about, is this leap real? Well, now, as you like to divide the season into 4 quarters, we're through 1 quarter, and Jaden McDaniels is a couple made free throws away from 50, 40, 90. I feel like that's worth mentioning. I did use field goal percentage. Just want to say that. I'm sorry. I know that that bugs you, but I think he's shooting.
You think that's a good stat?
No, I don't. I just looked it up. Okay. I did some research today. It was this or Stranger Things, but he is shooting 54.7% field goal percentage, 46.5% from 3, 86.7% from the free throw line. He is averaging a career high in assists, which is like 2.5, averaging a career high in points. But big picture, it's just, this is an eye test thing for people who really like watching Jaden McDaniels play. All the stats back up that he's taken a leap. He is so comfortable in transition. Last night was one of the coldest poster dunks I've ever seen. Just a guy he starts to bounce around. When he starts hopping around in transition, you know shit's about to go down. Finishes on Trey Murphy, does the little kind of Cam Newton jersey thing. Had that finish from Ant in the lob in transition, but he is just playing such good basketball. And while everyone is freaking out about the Wheel of Fortune puzzle that only has 4 letters on, like, I don't know if this is a championship team or not. It's like, well, it's not fucking Christmas yet. This story for Jaden is one of the things I love about covering 82 games is like, yeah, I don't know what this team's going to do in April or May, but his development and his leap, like this is something that they can maybe stack, as Finch always likes to say, stack more responsibilities on come playoff time, because I think there have been multiple moments in the last 5-game stretch, they're 4-1, where he has kind of saved them, right? Donte gets all the credit for the poke check steal. We don't remember that play if Jaden doesn't come down and calmly hit a 9-foot banker, which was still a weird shot. But like he's taking shots now that he just would have never taken in his first 5 or 6 years in the league. And that to me is all about what the confidence is like in his own brain, what they're telling him, and for his offense to be catching up to his all NBA level defense. I think it's another really big story on a team that needs to continue to organically develop some of these guys around Ant and Julius.
Did you see what Nas had to say about his dunk?
No, I didn't. You got a good one? You got a clip?
I do.
What's your homie?
I seen better. I seen better. But nah, it was cool. It was good for him to, getting that highlight reel. It kind of got us going too with the break, and I think we had a few lobs too. So a few kickouts and make for threes and all that good stuff. But that's the type of offense that I'm talking about that we need. Just playing together and moving the ball.
I play that actually because of what he said afterwards there. Like that stuff gets us going. And yeah. I do think Jaden has got them going in that way, in transition, in those times where there's something in basketball about when somebody physically overwhelms, and it's on your team. There's their inspiration. I don't keep saying that, but like comes with that. And I think Jaden, at his size, and what he's able to do with his size does create, well, one, it's just effective, right? That he's that big. And I want to talk about something else here too. But I do think these guys have known that Jaden has had this. I mean, they've been telling us for like 3 or 4 years. And we're like, yeah, I can't wait till he takes like 8 shots in a game, but that is happening, and I think everybody is pumped for that on the team. And everybody's like, yeah, this is good. This does help. I was looking up some numbers on him for the season. And I would imagine, if you're not watching every Wolves game and you're kind of like parachuting in, or maybe you're looking at Jaden McDaniels' season and you just kind of pull up Basketball Reference or whatever, and you go, all right, 47% from 3, like that's going to come back down to earth. And they wouldn't be wrong. Like Jaden's probably not going to shoot 47% from 3 this season. But what that would miss is everything else. Like what you're talking about here in transition, his ability to score in many ways. He's scoring within the 3-point arc a ton and in a diversity of ways. We've talked again for years about the usage pie and does Jaden get any? Last season was his highest usage of his career, and he would rank 41st percentile amongst wings in usage rate. You want to guess where he ranks amongst wings in usage rate this year, percentile wise?
70th?
Yeah, 67th. That's
okay.
High, considering he starts next to Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards, right? Like he's getting a lot of usage. And I think that's, again, a stat that's representative of things that we're actually seeing on the floor, transition and stuff that you bring up. But man, I think the superpower is this slow step thing. I don't know how you guard a 6'11" slow step. I'll put it up on the screen here. So all right, sorry, we got some sound going here, but just watch Jaden.
Yeah. All 14 people at the Smoothie King Center thought Jaden traveled there, but it's not a travel. That's a real good play.
Yeah, I asked Jaden about that specifically with the slow step and the travel. I've seen this be a super powerful move that nobody can really defend. I asked Jaden about it after the game. Oops. Oh, that's the one that was without the, here we go. Where, oh my God. Come on, Dane. Come on, Dane.
Jaden McDaniels filibuster here until the video pops up. I'm just going to keep talking about how he also never says, I'd say.
Here we go.
Slow step. I mean, he's had it for a couple of years, but like, how has that become a weapon?
It's helped me out a lot just to be able to decelerate and just keep the defense off balance and stuff. People really don't expect it because like only smaller people do it, and like I'm super tall and it still works for me. So just using it just to draw fouls or just to make it easier for myself.
It's like real close to like a trap.
Yeah, it looked like a trap, but I've done it so much to where I don't even do regular layups no more. I literally slow step wide open. That's what I do.
I literally slow step wide open. We should describe what a slow step is. So it's like kind of, we know what like a Euro step is, right? Like it's basically like a very much slowed down Euro step. And
it looks like Kyle Anderson.
Yeah, I like that.
You know what I mean? It looks like Kyle Anderson. And also, I thought you were going to say, I think we should discuss for the audience quick what it's like in a post-game locker room after they win. Because if someone didn't hear a word Jaden just said there, it's because Ant was screaming in the shower at everyone in a fun way. But I was joking when you're trying to find the clip, but Jaden misses less threes now. And Jaden also says, I'd say less. And that tells me as a lifelong person who's followed him that his confidence is so high. Like he answers the questions now confidently, just like he plays confidently. And that slow step, mostly still in transition, right? Unless he maybe catches, a late shot clock grenade and he's got to get to the basket. He's still very comfortable despite shooting 46.5% from three. He loves that mid-range area. Like he loves that 8 to 12 kind of foot, as Britt calls it, the recliner shot. So yeah, I just think his overall play, I will say, if you're criticizing a segment where it's like 15, 4, and 2 is a leap, it is if we've all said for many years that he's the fifth option in most of the lineups he's in, right? Like if you're getting 15, 4, and 2 on 50, 40, 86 splits from the fifth option on a team, especially we just said Donte's seventh in the league in threes, like what's his usage rate? Like this starting five dominates the usage rate pie, and all the other guys are more of an emphasis, I think, for Finch in what they try to do offensively. For Jaden to be that productive, that consistent, and now doing it for not just 1 or 2 weeks, like a quarter of the season. Obviously, now it's something to monitor for the next 22 games, but I think that's another sneaky thing as we try to figure out, okay, this offense, we wake up today, right? Offensive rating is like 7th in the league. A lot of good Ant, a lot of good Julius, but I think between Donte and then what Jaden's giving them in transition, in the corners, little offensive rebound action, and then the stuff you talked about earlier this week defensively, like playing in the middle of a zone and stuff as the second best rim protector on the team. I just think he's having an incredible season. And those are two stories that get him and Donte that get lost a lot when we talk about Ant and Julius and Rudy.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the defense. I think that somewhat goes without saying that we know Jaden's a good defender, but to your point, like he's unlocked a lot of that zone look, which has made the non-Rudy minutes tenable. That's huge. But to focus on the offense as we're doing here, Jaden's offensive leap that we're calling it. I would note in that offensive estimated plus minus, it's Ant, Randall, DiVincenzo, top 3 in it. And then 4th on the team in offensive estimated plus minus is Jaden McDaniels, which is ahead of Naz Reid, which is ahead of Rudy Gobert, which is ahead of Mike Conley. All 3 of those guys in OEPM were ahead of Jaden a season ago. He's not the 5th option anymore in terms of usage or effectiveness. And yeah, that's why we don't just use 15, 4, and 2 to contextualize what a player's impact is on the floor, because if you've watched all 22 of these games that Jaden McDaniels' impact is greater than that, right? It doesn't take a trained eye to see that. This kid's having the best year of his career, and he's doing it by doing more different things than he has in previous seasons. And yeah, we absolutely should highlight that.
And we can go to another topic, but it's worth mentioning because this is going to tie into something I want to talk about later. He's also only used as an emergency valve right now, but he is someone I trust in these last couple minutes of games to get the ball inbounded to him on a team that still doesn't have a lot of guys that I feel safe dribbling up the court. Like they'll find Jaden if they can't get it to Ant or maybe Donte. And like I trust Jaden. Think about this, right? He punched a wall. He used to fall out all the time. Like I trust him to not make careless turnovers down the stretch. Now, I don't want him to be the guy come playoff time that the ball's in his hands, but I think that's a little wrinkle too of like they trust him to go and get the ball 94 feet if Ant or Donte can't get open on a team that I'm still very concerned about the guard play. Do you want to pick the next one, or do you want me to go right into the Jaylen Clark thing that you teased at the top?
Yeah, sure. We can do the Clark one.
Because if you're listening to this and you're 30 minutes and you're like, man, this is a super positive podcast. Well, now it turns a little bit. Yes, we wake up today and the Minnesota Timberwolves are 11-0 when Jaylen Clark plays 14 or more minutes. Hat tip to Grady, who kind of had that stat earlier this week. And obviously 3-8 when Jaylen Clark does not play 14 or more minutes. For starters, if you hear that, and maybe you have this up, is that a bunch of noise? Like, is that a bunch of garbage time? Or are those minutes like real healthy minutes? Do you have the answer to that?
I mean, I honestly didn't even think about the garbage time thing.
I didn't either.
You sent it to me, but that makes sense. You know, that's juice in that probably a little bit, right? Like in the games where he's against, you know, whatever bad team, Brooklyn or something like that, plays the last 7 minutes of the game or something, and now he's over 14 minutes in a game they would have won if he would have played 7 still or whatever. But I don't know, man. I'm watching the games. Feels kind of real. Like it feels like an impact that this team is craving, you know? And I would go the like other way of it, of if Jaylen Clark isn't playing 14, 15 plus minutes in a game, that means that somebody else is. And it's probably one of the other younger guys, the Rob Dillingham or Terrence Shannon Jr., and their minutes are eating into that 15 minutes that Jaylen was getting. And we kind of saw that right once TJ got back, right? TJ kind of went back to being the 8th man, where Jaylen Clark had been that. And I think it was after Clark had been really good, TJ came back and maybe Clark only played 9 or 10 minutes in that game. And we all went, well, I don't know. I thought he was helping. And I think that has sort of proved out thus far over 22 games. And I know TJ has been injured and had a inconsistent role. Rob's obviously had an inconsistent role the whole time, but when Jaylen Clark has got a consistent role for this team, they've won games, you know, and what his skill set is makes sense to me that would lead to winning. Obviously, this team is missing Nickeil Alexander-Walker, is clearly missing perimeter defense, ball containment, which is such a critical piece of, you know, what makes this team a good defensive team when they're good, or has made them a good defensive team the previous couple of seasons. And he's confidently taking threes, being left wide open, often to take them, but it's not a Kyle Anderson situation. He's not like a knockdown guy, but you know, I go into a game and I think it was 2 of 6 last night, right? From 3. A lot of those were wide open. Finch was, when I asked him about it after the game, was happy with it. He goes, he knocked down his first 2 threes, missed the rest of them, but those were good looks that we want him to be taking. I think on wide open looks, Jaylen can make high 30% of those, maybe 40. And frankly, he probably needs to. Like, he probably needs to be justifying 15 plus minutes a night, especially in a playoff rotation. We want to talk about that. Like, I think that's going to ultimately be when April comes around, is Jaylen in the rotation or not? I think it'll have a lot to do with what Finch's belief is in his 3-point shot. And it's a little bit of a question mark, but it's not a Kyle Anderson situation. You know, it's I believe in it. I believe in it being good enough. Britt and I did a little bet on it a week ago, and we did over under on 36% 3-point shooting for Jaylen for the year. I took over, Britt took under. I think that's a good line. And I think if Jaylen is above that, given what he gives you defensively, yeah, I think we got some pretty bankable impact. Well, also he struggled at times, some bad foul. He's not like a no-brainer. I don't think this is a no-brainer situation. He's played bad in games, but for me, good enough to very much be warranting the 8th man role. And I would like to see 14 minutes a night. I think that's a good number.
A lot to digest there, actually. But I do want to segue into non-Jaylen Clark stuff, but just a couple things. Yeah, he's shooting 36.6% as of this morning from 3. All eye test for me. When he catches it, he's almost like significantly wide open, which if you talk to some role players, like you talk to guys in the locker room, like that's kind of a mind fuck sometimes. Be like, oh, I'm this wide open. Like they definitely don't think I'm a good basketball player. But he takes these shots with the utmost confidence. And that's kind of all you can hope for, right? Like if it does swing to him, he's not even thinking about it. Maybe he could add a little bit of a drive. Like if he's that wide open, can you get halfway to the rim and then maybe throw something up to Rudy or whatever? But he also
does go to Rudy a lot in those spots, right? Or last night
he tried more playmaking. That's TBD for me. Is like, can he play make? I don't know if the coaching staff has taken those training wheels off. He's not the big red glue, but he does cut really well. Like last night when Nas got in trouble, Jaylen just made a subtle little cut under the basket, catches it, finished a stupid, crazy and one or whatever, that little twirling layup. But he's just a winning player. To your point, and this is kind of how I want to segue into good Jaylen Clark stats, but as we're 2 months out from the trade deadline, and the last trade deadline, we did a bunch of pods, and I talked about, hey, they don't really need to make a lot of moves. They have a lot of depth. I find myself in the last couple of weeks wondering if this team is super thin. Like, instead of super deep, like super thin. And to your point about Jaylen Clark deserves to be the 8th man in the rotation. I think he might deserve to be the 7th man in the rotation. And I'm kind of nitpicking there, but I watch a lot of these games, and I think the Timberwolves have 6.5 good players. And it's the starting 5, it's Naz Reid, and then it's like, what can we get from Rob or Terrence or Jaylen or Mike? I looked this up. They're 22 games into the season, 14-8. Second best start, by the way, through 22 games in the Chris Finch era. They're 4-0 in games when multiple bench players score 10 or more points. They've had 5 games this season where no one on the bench scores double-digit points. Outside of Naz Reid, I think 2 guys this season or 3 guys have had double-digit scoring performances. And if you're wondering where I'm getting at with this, it kind of ties back into the Ant and Julius stuff of we've been pretty hypercritical about those 2, and I think rightfully so, harsh but fair. But I'm kind of at the point now where I'm giving them more leash to fuck up because I don't really know what Chris Finch is supposed to do. And I get that, he should give some of these guys more leash. But last night I thought Terrence was a little better. But the 4 games before that, and I think Jim Pete kind of called this out too, like he was an anchor, and not defensively, like in a good way. Like he was bringing them down. Like these guys they bring off the bench right now do very little to help the starting 5 or the top 6 guys. And that's why back to Jaylen, it's like, I think right now, 2 weeks ago, you said just play 2 of them. Jaylen Clark to me is 15 minutes or more now in this rotation for the next month. And he has leapfrogged TJ. He has leapfrogged Rob. And I think he's leapfrogged Mike Conley because he has a direct impact on some of this stuff right now. And maybe you disagree, but I do find myself 60 days out from the trade deadline. And I don't have names for you or anything, although I do have one proposal. But they need to find more help for Ant. And I think Jaylen Clark gives them a little bit of that in all areas. He's not Nikhil, but he does hit on little things that Nikhil used to do that really gave Ant more freedom to focus on what he does best.
Today's show is brought to you by Harry's. Very excited to have Harry's on board with us for the holiday season because these are the razors I actually use and have used for years. I remember shopping for razors used to be the worst. Not only were they too expensive, but it was also a process to go to the store and buy the razors. And they never seemed to last, which led to a dull razor, which led to razor burn. My first reaction when using Harry's was, oh, okay, this is what shaving is supposed to feel like. With Harry's Plus, you get a barbershop quality shave with German engineered blades. Each blade is honed at 3 different angles to cut hair cleanly at the root without tugging. And I think the best part of Harry's might be how affordable it is. Harry's owns their own world-class blade factory in Germany, so there's no outsourcing, no middlemen. Why pay $30 for refills when Harry's gives you better blades for a fraction of the cost. For a limited time, our listeners can get the Harry's Plus trial set for only $10 at harrys.com/DaneMoore. The set includes the all-new Harry's Plus razor, one refined 5-blade cartridge, a 2-ounce foaming shave gel, and a travel cover to protect your blades on the go. Just head to harrys.com/DaneMoore to claim this offer. And after you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. So please support our show and tell them we sent you. Today's show is also brought to you by Storyworth Memoirs. They're back this week, and we're excited to have Storyworth back as a holiday season gift option for your parents or loved ones. I think if you're around my age, this is a great gift to give your parents. The idea behind Storyworth is uncovering stories you didn't know about your loved one. So how this works is each week Storyworth emails a loved one a memory-provoking question that you get to choose. Questions like, what are your favorite toys as a child? What are you most proud of? And all your loved one needs to do is respond to that email with a story. Then after a year, Storyworth compiles your loved one's stories and photos into a beautiful keepsake hardcover book. Photos are printed in color, and it will be a treasure your loved one and you will be able to share and revisit for generations. Customers love Storyworth. They've printed over 1 million books and preserved 35 million family stories since their founding 13 years ago. They also have over 48,000 5-star reviews on Trustpilot. I am going to use Storyworth this holiday season. I think you should too. Give your loved ones a unique keepsake you'll all cherish for years. Storyworth Memoirs. Right now, save $10 or more during their holiday sale when you go to storyworth.com/DaneMoore. That's storyworth.com/DaneMoore to save $10 or more on your order. Yeah, I like the way you put it of like, Ant needs help in areas. Like, so what, I think that's the question of who they're playing here of like, what are the areas you want to prioritize to give Ant help? And Jaylen is obviously going to give them defensive help and perimeter defensive help. But if we were to power rank it out, you were to say, well, the number one thing that Ant needs help in is he needs, which I think is your stance, a point guard, or another handler out there with him. Then we're doing apples and oranges between Jaylen Clark and Mike and Rob. You know what I'm saying? So I take your point, but I don't know. I think it's between Jaylen and Mike, right? For who would be the most likely to give you a good, impactful game on a night-to-night basis. It's just those two guys are so different in what they do. And if I had to say what feels like a greater need for this team between perimeter defense and competent handling, neither are good. But I think I would say competent handling. Well, I don't know. Where would you be on that?
That's I don't. You're gonna have to keep me on track here, but you made me bring this up. So I would not do this, and I will not text this to Matt Lloyd. But 2 weeks ago, when I was talking about this guard thing, I'm not like hyper focused on a point guard, but I'm convinced that this team is going to do something to add a guard to help Ant out. And you're right. You can look at Mike, you can look at Rob, you can look at Jaylen, and maybe even TJ, all as guards, and like they all kind of do little things. Jaylen at least is showing you via a very fun, stupid stat, 11-0, 14 or more minutes, that he contributes to winning. Terrence has not done that. Rob has not done that. Mike has done that historically. I don't know if he's done that so much this year. But there is a Rob Dillingham for Chris Dunn swap that works in the spot track trade machine. And that gets you a little bit of the shooting, a little bit of the ball handling, and the defense, right? I mean, I trust him to take. I mean, yeah, he's had some up and down seasons, but he's a much better shooter than he has. You can look it up.
Yeah,
but
no, I don't know.
That's kind of like when you say like you ask Britt to go back in the time machine and bring Tony Parker to the mix. That's like a real player that I think does a little bit of everything, right? Like he does give you a little bit. He can bring the ball up. He's been trusted in starting lineups, And again, we're not doing trade stuff, but that's kind of when you start to forge. Because it would be great to have Rob and Jaylen have a kid at players on the team now, because I trust him to bring the ball up.
Dunn. Yeah.
But for now, just going back, like they've had 5 games in a 22-game sample size where no bench player scores double-digit points.
Yeah.
And if you go back and look at it's always Nas, and that's kind of it. It's just really concerning as you talk about, or as other people talk about, what does this look like? What does the playoff rotation look like, or championship odds or whatever? I don't know how any of those guys would be trusted over Jaylen Clark in a playoff setting. Like even Mike, who has a long history of just doing it, he's shooting kind of the same percentage as Jaylen right now from three. Obviously more assists, more playmaking, more ability to take some of the pressure off Ant. But Jaylen Clark, just to put a bow on it, like he should be the second guy off the bench right now. And you're starting to see it. He's coming in the first quarter a little bit more, which is always, a thing that Finch will do to show that he trusts that guy. But on the fouling, one thing, they did like a behind the scenes practice. I think it was on NBA TV when they're on national TV a couple weeks ago.
I remember I was there when they were doing that.
It's a really cool, it's on the Timberwolves YouTube and you can go watch it. It's like 40 minutes. It's really cool. It's like, basically it's like you're at a practice. But one of the things that Finch came up to Jaylen and said, because when you think about when Jaylen Clark gets in trouble this season, it's a stupid foul late in a quarter that sends the team to the free throw line and Finch loses his fucking mind. But as Finch told him in practice, he's like, you sub in most of the time when we're at or near the bonus. And I thought that was kind of like a smart thing. Like, oh yeah, like, yes, Jaylen needs to be smarter with how he's using his body and not fouling, but he is coming in and like the team's already fouled 5 times, right? So he doesn't have the benefit of Ant being able to hand check because if he fouls, they're going straight to the line. So I'm just impressed by Jaylen Clark these first 22 games because 2 months ago, if you and I would have done like rotation projections, we would have absolutely had him at the third of the 3 pecking order, right? Like we would have had TJ probably at the top, then Rob and Jaylen Clark. And I think that is completely flipped on its head. And I hope that he gets to continue to earn Chris Finch's trust moving forward.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's not going to solve your getting a guy to score 10 points off the bench.
For sure. Yep.
And that's why all of these are half measures, which
is why they need to make a move.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say, which brings up the trade deadline conversations. It's gonna be a really interesting topic. Like even outside of like what specific player it is and what deal like functionally works with the assets and money and those sort of things. I need to just spend more time thinking about it. But what do you want to prioritize for that one piece that you do bring in, and what caliber of piece? Right? Are you obviously? It's sexier to be like the big, trade for a big starter, the point guard, Ja Morant, whatever. And I think there's a case to be made that something like that would be good. And now you've pushed maybe the Donte DiVincenzo's back to the bench or something like that. And there you go. Now we got 15 points off the bench or whatever it might be. But there's also, for a lesser price, can you just go get a bench piece? Britt brought up Scottie Pippen Jr. Yesterday. I think Scottie Pippen Jr. is kind of like the Mike Conley, Jaylen Clark combination type of deal there too. But if you bring in Scottie Pippen Jr., what's the ripple effect of that? Okay, Rob Dillingham's not playing at all then, so it's when they sit down to have these conversations, they're going to need to like line up what their priorities are and make a move accordingly if it's possible to make. I just think lining up those priorities and like setting a pecking order of them is an interesting conversation, because it's like, if this, then not that, if this, then that, it's yeah.
And you've been really good about this, like legitimate, sincere credit of there's an opportunity cost to any trade you make, right? Like if you trade 21-year-old Rob Dillingham for what would be 1.5 more years of Chris Dunn, who's shooting 38% from 3 over his last 4 seasons. Low volume, but again, he's not the Chris Dunn that Timberwolves fans remember. He has kind of, like Nikhil, dollar store value, found his game and become a valuable role player. But there's an opportunity cost to going to get any of these guys. And if you do go get a Chris Dunn and you have to give up a Rob Dillingham, who you paid all this money to, like, I get that. I just am starting to watch again, going back to my 6.5 good players that I trust on any good night. I think there's an opportunity cost as we move through the season, and especially as we get close to the playoffs, of not having better players around Ant. And right now, for whatever reason, I mean,
I like that.
I'm very concerned that the player drafted after 4 years in college that everyone thought this summer was going to give you 17 points a game off the bench, and Terrence Shannon Jr. doesn't have a right hand. Like, that's concerning to me, and I don't really know how that's going to translate to the playoffs. Like last night, he gets to the right. He does get downhill. They're setting up some things for him. No right hand.
Yeah.
No right hand. And we would criticize Rob for that. I saw this too on Rob. This was before the first Pelicans game. I think 30% of Rob Dillingham's shots this season have been blocked. Again, just like these little stats that, and I'm not shitting on Rob because I thought Rob has given him some good time. And now this kind of spirals maybe into topic 4, but like, this is chicken or egg for me so much. This is the blue and white versus black and gold dress thing from 10 years ago. Should Chris Finch continue to give these guys more minutes off the bench? Or is he not giving them any more minutes because of what we just talked about? They're not giving him anything. Like, would more minutes lead to more production, or would more minutes just lead to the boat drowning more and Ant has to come back and Julius has to come back and save them? I think that's a huge dilemma right now for this organization.
Yeah, I asked, let's move to Finch. I asked Finch about the roles of the young guys on the team, and he talked a little bit about them specific to last night. I thought this was, especially if you're watching the body language of him talking here on YouTube, I thought it was pretty telling.
Jaylen and Rob.
Yeah, I mean, listen, like we're trying to stay committed to giving them minutes as they come. And I thought Jaylen played really well tonight. I think he made his first 2, then missed a bunch of other really good looks. Theige gave us some pop early on.
What do you make of that? I mean,
what did I text you at 1:30 a.m.? I mean, that is a man. And this is now segment or whatever. This is chapter 4. We're talking about Chris Finch through the first 22 games of the season. That's a man who is trying to tell everyone, trust the process. But his body language said, I don't want to play those guys. That's just my opinion watching that little video audio clip.
You know what else tells that story? Their box scores and how they never play more than 10 minutes. Like, yeah.
And last night I thought it was interesting. Ant gets into foul trouble. He has a really bad game last night after a heroic first game against the Pelicans, and he went right to Rob. Yeah. And I've been pro Chris Finch, and I know Jim Pete and Britt Robson, people that are way smarter than I have been, but I also see some of the issues that kind of drive me crazy. And one of them would be back to the 6.5 good players is, what do you do if you're Chris Finch with some of these guys? Because like TJ, for example, is the most exciting, maybe the highest ceiling, older NBA body on stuff. He's probably the worst of those 3 guys. Like both his net rating when he's out there, he's just, everything is bad with him. So should Finch continue to give him more minutes if they're not deserved? How does that play into the whole politics stuff? How does that play into just simply winning games? Like, again, I don't think anyone will be smitten if he played 9 guys all 15 or more minutes a game and they were 8 and 14, right? Like, that would be, people would have the pickaxes out to fire him. So I just find the Chris Finch conversation really interesting because that chicken and egg, but then also when you watch these fourth quarters and how they close games, I do think he's been more flexible or more adaptable to closing with weirder line. I mean, how many times now this a Pelican specific issue, but the last 2 games he just kind of closes without Rudy, or in that was it the Spurs game? He just goes 17 straight minutes without Rudy. Chris Finch, as a conservative coach, used to just, who started? All right, those 5 guys are going to close. That was always a thing, and that drove us crazy too. I do think that's one feather in his cap, while also having some valid criticisms of what he's doing with some of these young guys or who's getting minutes. But I've been really impressed, Dane, with closing with the 5 guys that are the hottest hands. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of flushed itself out a little bit, maybe in some of the clutch time numbers.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't actually pull up the clutch time numbers.
Okay.
I wrote down that I was going I was going to do that.
That's the Donte DiVincenzo lob to Ant that went out of bounds. It's like, all right, here you go. Oh, just kidding. Turnover.
Right. No, I take your point. There's a greater diversity of the way that they're closing, and it surprises us at times. I was never surprised like 2 years ago. Like I tracked the rotations. Yeah, like it was actually stupid that I spent time during every game typing out like this player subbed in at the 8-minute mark, this player did, because it was like literally the same. I remember that season I could like say it. I can't do it now, but I could say it by memory. It was like, all right, Nas and Donte at 6, Nikhil at 9, like it, and it was like that. It's not like that this season. And that's because the roster does not demand that. That would be a mistake to do this. There's so there's such a greater volatility of what you're going to get from these bench guys. Frankly, a greater volatility of what you're going to get from these starting players night to night. I look at Ant last night. That, you know, he and Micah Nori, and watch that segue. They got to get into their bag a little bit and do things a little bit differently. The reason I said I was going to bring up the clutch numbers and I did not was because I thought this was interesting. Probably this was more news to me than it was for people, you know, watching the games on the broadcast. But after that first Pelicans game, I noticed Micah Nori was drawing up the final play of the game, and I noticed him doing that in one of the games over Thanksgiving that I wasn't at either, so I watched the broadcast as well. And so I asked Finch about it before last night's game. Of just, I didn't even know if this was a new thing or not, but he kind of confirmed it was. So here's Finch on Micah Nori kind of taking over late game X's and O's.
Times late in games, on Micah with the board.
Yeah.
Is that I don't know.
That's new. So Micah's, you know, he's always been in charge of our special situations and our, you know, small plays as we call it. Like, and so this year, you know, I just let him take the board and he draws up. And generally, I'll still kind of like handle the defensive side of it. And Micah's, you know, 90% just drawing up and the plays and making sure we execute the stuff that we've gone through and stuff that we know. So.
Does it feel abnormal at all to you? What does that feel like, I guess?
I mean, I have complete trust in Micah. He's good at it. You know, it's sometimes as a head coach, like, it frees me up not having to think like about the next play when things are going on in the game. So I you know, and it's we need to get better at it, and he's been a real big help there, and so it's, you know, it feels great. It's like I don't take it as anything as like I'm not insecure about it. Yes.
A Minnesota head coach giving up some of the play calling duties to benefit his organization. That's crazy.
Is that a KOC joke? I don't even know.
It is a KOC joke. No, I just think, again, the Chris Finch thing, and this is now maybe just as we put it on our calendars, you remember rotations from years past. I should just remember that the first 40 games of any NBA season now, Chris Finch is going to be under the microscope more than anyone. But I've been critical, or I find there valid criticism in how he's doing the rotation and how some of the young guys aren't developing. While also, like, that's a pretty big, I mean, he said it to you guys, there's no ego involved. That's a pretty big thing. Because I think it's subtle, but like that little Ant play to get them tied, that was a nice little play where clearly in the play design, they tell Julius, like, you're going to get the ball and run probably like a dribble handoff to Ant, but then sprint, like have a sprint cut to the basket to pull defenders away. That was so small and subtle, but it clearly led to a game-tying play. There's so much value in ATOs, right? And we just haven't really seen. Half the time we're yelling at people to call timeouts, and then after those timeouts, nothing really good comes of it, which I think is part of the reason why they don't always call timeouts. But I think that little wrinkle is big. I think figuring out who to close with and being more flexible and adaptable has been big. And then I also just think, as I still get inundated every time they lose with like Fire Finch stuff, your videos you have after these games, I find it interesting still that we're at a point as we talk about a team that's openly embracing being bored, openly embracing being like, we can't wait till April. They always unprovoked, Dane, Mike, Julius, Ant, Rudy, they always say like the coaching staff, Finchy tells us what to do, Finchy tells us what to do, and we don't do it. I just think that's interesting. And I don't really know where to go from there, but I just find it interesting that you could ask them a question about anything and like, well, Finch told us to do this, and we just simply didn't do it. I don't know.
The only thing you can say then coaching wise is like enforcement, you know?
Yeah, like accountability, but yeah.
Yeah. I don't know enough about coaching or especially at the NBA level to know like how possible is it to enforce that? You know, like we're coaching a high school basketball team and little Anthony doesn't do the play. Like, you know, we could go to like, it's a lot easier for us to be like, all right, Kyle, you're in, you know?
Well, he doesn't have a lot of
I don't
guys to
know.
sub in, so
Yeah, true. That's right.
more of a
Yeah,
again. I am. If you don't know by now, I'm pretty concerned about the roster. But I made that KOC joke or whatever. But from my understanding, being a diehard Vikings fan, like that's just the head coach just doesn't want to do that. And I think for this one, as every time this season starts in November and October and December, it's like fire Finch, fire Finch. And I'm not saying he's free of blame, but it does show a sign internally, because you and I know this really well now, having done this for a decade. The internal vibes rarely ever match the external vibes. Like what's going on within Mayo Clinic Square is 180 degrees than what's going on Wolves Twitter. And I just think for him to be like, you know what, let's give more, what does he call it? Special circumstances designs to Micah, who's a really good head coach. And that would be the guy that, you know, hypothetically you would think would replace Finch if they ever let him go in season. Like that's a good sign of building trust. I liked when Britt said yesterday to you that sometimes Finch just chooses to have a happier locker room than to have, you know, like a little more of the accountability or holding guys, you know, being firm with them. So
maybe
maybe. Yeah. We'll see.
Theory. We don't know. Like that. I mean, that's Britt's there, you know, it's kind of like my read too, but I don't know. Like I've also know that like Finch is consistently laying into guys. Like I mean, last season, I know, just like talking to some of the players, just like whatever, not during the interviews. And it's like, Finch is angry every day. You know, it's not like he is. You remember that game in Phoenix, right? And what did Nikhil say? He's like, Finch woke up and chose violence today.
Yeah.
Like, there's an element of Finch that is like, he's a chill dude. Like, you know, you've interacted with him a million times. Like there is he has a calmness about him and a laissez-faire sort of, like you see his vibe when we play these clips and stuff like that. And that's my exposure to him. That's Britt's exposure to him. That's your exposure to him. But I am not at the practices. I'm glad we got the NBA was there one time or whatever. But like, we don't know the degree to which Finch is enforcing because the media is not allowed to be there at the time when Finch is enforcing. So I'm going off of conversations I've had about people. It's like, that's just, Finch isn't casual in that way. It isn't like he's just letting them go. Now, at the same time, the problem is the problem. They consistently are not doing this. So Finch is thus not absolved of blame. Generally speaking, I think these things are like coaching enforcement issues, and I think he could be better at it. I think, but I don't. Again, like I don't know. It's just one of those things that's hard to speak on from like a position of authority or understanding. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, that's why my answer is just to like cluster it together. It is like, I don't remember if it was you or Jace or whatever, where like these late game issues are on the three most important people, Finch, Ant, and Julius. You know, that's where that blame goes for that not happening, you know, when it doesn't happen. And it's certainly on Finch to some extent too, but I think we know this team enough to know that a chunk of it is on the players who admit to being casual at times, admit to getting bored at times, admit to saying, you know, we're playing like we kind of just want to fast forward to the playoffs at times, you know. I think that stuff is on everybody, including Finch.
And again, this is not a PSA to be nicer to the head coach. It's far from that. It's just pointing out, you know, rather than having one laser focus, because all the high school kids hate him, right? Like, I know it's the holiday season, but it's Chris Grinch to them. But it's also like, okay, this team is once again as a 49.5 win projection in the preseason. Like, they're on a 52 win pace. And I just feel like a lot of people are miserable because they dissect one little thing here or one little rotation there. And what was actually the most interesting to me, as the Chris Finch conversation will remain fluid, just like any head coach does throughout any professional sports team, I rewatched all these games, but I rewatched these last 2 Pelicans games using the Pelicans feed. And they are, as the kids say, glazing Chris Finch for what he's doing. I can't remember who the one of the commentators are for the Pelicans, but in that first game,
or Antonio Daniels.
Antonio Daniels, like he said in the second half, like, look at all these little wrinkles that Chris Finch has changed, I think at halftime, to get Ant in better spaces to just score or to not have so much pressure. That was the Pelicans broadcast being like the coach made some subtle but very valuable adjustments in the 15 minutes of halftime that helped this team kind of figure it out. Obviously, playing Ant for the entire second half and overtime helped too. But it's just, to me, like you said, if you want to cluster it, it is a big chunk of how people consume this product. And I just think it's easy to always nitpick the head coach. And that's fine. That's kind of part of the responsibility and the role. But I couldn't help but think about the flexibility of what he's trying to do late games, who's running the late game stuff, and then the way his players talk about him. And I kind of did think about a Vikings perspective. Like, that's not how I'm getting it on the Vikings side. So just an interesting wrinkle, something to keep an eye on moving forward. But I think last but not least, I think we should do this one really quick because I don't know if you want to do a Prize Picks promo, but Anthony Edwards is not going over on his projected assist totals in a lot of these games. And I noticed that. You noticed it from a basketball analysis standpoint. And I'm wondering if you think, and this ties into getting all the doubles and stuff, but is it bad that Ant's assist numbers as a lead guard and as he develops as a playmaker aren't going up?
I asked Finch about it. Let's start there. This is what I asked Finch about those numbers being lower. This is Ant's lowest assists per game numbers since his second season. Only 3.9 assists per game, whereas the previous 3 seasons it was 4.5, 5.1, 4.4. I think assists are like an imperfect stat at times too, because it represents like a grade on playmaking when we know that a player can playmake and not get it an assist. But I figured I would ask Finch about it.
About the assist thing. You talked the other day about the team assists are high and fine and Ants are lower. Do you attribute that to anything other than he's getting hockey assists?
I mean, we've never, even with the likes of Mike Conley or D'Angelo when he was here, or PB, or anyone, we've never had a high assist point guard where they've gotten double-digit assists every night, because we do it by committee and ball movement and stuff like that. So, and I think that's what you're seeing with Ant. It's not like we're asking him to kind of pick apart defenses all by himself. He starts the chain reaction that often leads into somebody else getting the assist. Hockey assist if you call it that, but sometimes it's not even that. It's just might be 2 passes to the other side of the floor from what he does.
So, Kyle, I think the reason it isn't a nit that I've been picking with Ant when I've picked many nits with Ant, it's because his individual scoring has been efficient and high. He averaged nearly 30 a game this season. And the team's assist totals are high, and the team's offensive rating is high. The Wolves are 12th in assists per game this season, which I think is a representation of what Finch brought up there. And I hadn't even really thought about the D'Lo, Pat Bev, and some of those other points. Even Mike, more prime Mike. The Finch offense, I don't think allows the lead guard to be a 8-9 assist guy. It's the Finch offense generates assists more so through drawing to kicking out of it, and then swing from there. Now, Julius, his are more direct assists, and I think that's because he's a different passer than Ant is. And one representation of that is Julius is 85 on the gun every time he kicks it out to the corner, right? It's that's a zip, Julius is in the swing is getting out the first swing. He is I am just going to get this directly to the corner to Donte rather than to Naz above the break, then to Donte, or Ant is more of just drawing that second guy and getting things moving. That said, I think 3.9 is too low. I think there's some that Ant could be doing there. But again, like if I'm going through things with Ant, that is like, if we got 5 or 10% more from him, this would be valuable. Like I could, could rebound a little bit more, could be more engaged off ball defensively. Can we stay locked in late game situations? Like, to me, those things are all Ant specific, like way more important than him having his lowest assist per game number than his his third or second year in the league.
For what it's worth, zero concerns. Like if you only follow this team via, NBA stats, you would probably be concerned, but zero concern on my end. I just thought it was an interesting topic because with 3 minutes left in that first Pelicans game the other day, it's 135 or whatever. He had 1 assist in a game that he's now played like 41 minutes. So you would think, like, is he just ball hogging or whatever? Sometimes he finds the perfect pass, whether it be 85 on the gun or a changeup, and his teammates just don't hit shots. A lot of times it's those bench guys. But I think the most important thing you said is that they're 12th in team assists this season. In the last 2 seasons, they were 17th and then 15th in the league. So like they have become more of a pass the ball, move it around, a little more flow offense this year than they have in the past. But it's just interesting because when you think about Finch being in Houston or whatever, like this heliocentric James Harden, Luka, like some of these guys that have the ball in their hands so much, that's not what I think they want Ant to become. You know what I mean? And maybe they do in the defense. I mean, the Pelicans were so bold about, as he crossed half court these last 2 games, like there were 2 guys there and he had to get off of it. And then it becomes like a power play in hockey where it's 4-on-3. And I think for the most part, they're figuring that out more and more. It's just an interesting thing to bring up because, again, 2 weeks ago, we did the whole Ant is kind of taking these bad games off or whatever. And I think he's been, production-wise, just raw numbers, he's been awesome. But I also thought in these 2 Pelicans games, I mean, last night was bad because he had 4 fouls in the third quarter, but he's learning more and more how to just make winning plays and get off the ball more. And that's leading to hockey assists, whatever. Like the numbers don't show that I think he's growing in that area very rapidly, in my opinion.
What would you, if you were coaching against the Wolves, use that put 2 on the ball on Ant strategy without a ball screen ever? Like, what do you think of that in general?
Well, I've been thinking, that's a great question because I've been thinking about, I would love to see a team completely go the other way and just say, we're going to try to put we're just going to let Ant see if he can outscore us by himself and let him get into like total killer mode. Because I mean, what the Pelicans did was like, hey, anyone but Ant beat us. And that's what kind of made that first Pelicans game so fucking cool is that he still found a way to, as he said post-game, like I should have had 50. Would be a curious wrinkle to say we're going to do the opposite and throw a different coverage at him and just one-on-one defense and see if he gets out of playmake mode still, but we're tighter on all the other players. We're not allowing lobs to the rim. We're putting one of our 2 best defenders on our roster on Donte to just chase, and maybe we can cut that valve off. Maybe Julius gets frustrated and that leads to, a 3 for 12 game. So I don't know if that directly answers your question, but I'm curious now to see. I mean, I hate these 2-game back-to-back things, but now we know how the Pelicans guard Ant. And now I want to see, like, how do the Clippers guard him, right? Like, that's a great example of what I just said is, do they just put Kawhi on him? Like, if Kawhi even plays. Like, do they just say Kawhi on Ant as long as he's out there, and we're going to play better defense against the other 4 guys that are on the court? I think that'll be a fascinating wrinkle to see how the Clippers defend him this weekend compared to how the Pelicans defended him this week.
Yeah, I guess I'm just interested to see if anybody else does what the Pelicans did of just sending to that. And part of the reason, I mean, the main reason why they did that is the Pelicans had depleted defensive personnel, and Derek Queen is as good as he is on offense, is probably like 480th in the league of defense. For like, he's not a presence in the lane and the rim, so there's no resistance that he was going to be able to present to Ant if they didn't put 2 on there. Initially I kind of got that when they were going to it, but then Chris and I talked about it after the game, and Ant scores 44, and we're like, Chris was like, I don't think that's the best strategy. I think the best strategy is to just have that heavy gap help. The thing we see in the playoffs where teams almost look like they're in that shell concept, almost like a zone, where it's just don't let Ant into the middle. And I was like, yeah, I agree. Like, I think that's the best thing to do against Ant. Then it's interesting to watch last night's game and be like, well, he didn't do anything. Ant didn't do anything against that 2 on the ball look consistently because he was exhausted, And so is there value for the opposing team to just do that to Ant to exhaust him? Because he did cook it in the first game, but to do that, he had to play way faster. He had to sprint dribble around that Kevon Looney or whatever. There was just tons of energy exerted outside of him playing the final 36 minutes of that game. And I guess I wonder if it's a strategy for wearing Ant down a little bit.
That's fair.
I don't know.
And I don't know if I think it's the first round of the playoffs, right? Like the games are a little more condensed, or maybe it's as the playoffs go on. But there's a chunk of the playoffs where all of a sudden, like, you're not getting 2 and 3 days off, and that's finals. And that's a fascinating thing to think about. I mean, chicken or egg again. Like he did. I know he was keeled over after that first Pelicans game, but he did play. I mean, I just thought he played phenomenal in that game. And maybe he missed some assignments. This kind of goes back to like they didn't have a lot of other options to really throw out there, so Ant had to go supernova. But yeah, that's interesting because he found another gear on Tuesday in New Orleans, but that carried over despite the off day. He was exhausted last night, and it'll be I'm curious to see more teams try to do it that maybe have better defenders that they can throw it. I mean, Alvarado, we're kind of shortchanging him, but he's
like a pest defender. He's not like a square you up and contain you defender. He's just too small, right? Like,
right.
It's probably a team specific thing, right? Like if the coach has to ask themselves, what do we have for Anthony Edwards? And if you don't have anything on the back line, then it's probably the move I would go to. I agree with Borrego doing it because there's no resistance at the rim. I bet you they wouldn't have done that if Yves Missi was playing in that game, or either of those games, right? Like it's I don't know, it's just an interesting thing. And it is a cool thing about, covering a star player, watching a star player play, of like, how does this team approach guarding Ant? Because he says it all the time of, I've seen every single coverage thus far in his career, and he has. I just think it's intriguing that he sees every single coverage at like over the course of a month. It's like night to night. It's like, how are they going to do it? It'll be interesting to see what the Clippers do on Saturday.
One thing, if you would do some homework for me, this is an all-pro Ant. One of the things that really concerns me, and it reminds me of football, I think they did it last night, the Lions, when a team goes running back, direct snap, and they put the quarterback out wide, and the quarterback just kind of stands there. I've never understood why the DB doesn't just go plow the fuck out of him, put him on his ass. But anyway, there's still some weird moments, and I'd love for Chris Finch to like comment on this, where when Ant gets off the ball in these, he sees 2 at the half court line, and I've got to get rid of it. He doesn't really leave the half court line.
Yeah.
He just kind of stays up there. And again, maybe this is part of the exhaustion or whatever, but there's multiple times in these last 2 Pelicans games where I thought Ant made the initial right read to get off of it. Nas has cut to the middle, Julius has cut to the middle, and they're going to go play 4-on-3. But the entire possession plays out, and I can't see 5 on the screen. And I feel like that's not great. And I would imagine exhaustion or not, like, okay, maybe that's the next step of I've seen all the coverages, but Ant, you know what to do now when you see 2, get off of it. How do you get Ant back in the play? Because the one thing that is detrimental, and this team has no chance, is like, you can't just get off of it and then not be a factor in that play. Because if that's the case, every team will defend them like this come playoff time and just be like, well, we'll just keep number 5 at half court. Like that is a little wrinkle now. And again, I know he played a lot of minutes these last 2 games, but that just can't happen. I don't think. Like you have to be able to, you got off of it, but now how do you go back and get it again? I know Michael Jordan was giving some quotes this week, but that's another wrinkle that I think they need to unlock, because you can't just have him sitting at the half court line doing nothing after he's made the right play. But like, there's more right plays in this 24, second shot clock.
Well, dude, like what? Okay. So you put 2 defenders on the ball there, and he does get off of it. What are those two defenders going to do as the pass goes? They're going to
Panic
turn
and
their
go.
heads.
Yeah.
They're going to turn their heads to where the ball went.
Mhm.
So if you're Ant,
Except
and you
Sadiq
get
Bey,
off that-
because he doesn't watch the ball. I know what you're saying. Sorry.
Yeah. But like, take advantage of that. They have turned, you've gotten off of it. Like, that's swim move. Let's go. Like, let's cut right down the middle of the floor there and then peel back out to the corner or whatever. Maybe if you got it to Julius there and you know, kind of split through those two guys, here we go. Like, literally give and go. Like, that would work sometimes when they just bring two guys there. I will say yes, Ant has faced every coverage. This was pretty new. It's I agree. Two guys waiting here for him deal. So I'm certain that in film, you know, this week, team film or individually with C. Hines, like they are literally going to be talking about these things in this spot. If they're here 35 feet from the basket, let's do this, you know, and to Ant's credit, he does learn those things. It does normally take a film session for it to sort of like sink in, and maybe he's got to see it again, but it comes. I would assume Ant will be even better against that the next time he sees it, because he hasn't seen it.
Because it makes so much sense that he gets off at half court and the defense immediately, like that's what they want Ant to do, but there's an immediate panic of like, oh shit, now it's 4-on-3, we got to catch up. And if you could just envision a little, you know, couple passes here or there, it could probably end up in Ant's hands again at the top of the arc for a wide open three.
Which does not happen currently.
And that's why, again, maybe you've seen all the coverages, but have you figured out all the answers to those coverages? And right now, again, he's been playing fantastic. This is not a direct criticism, but there is more meat on the bone there of you got off it, but that doesn't mean that the play is over for you. Like, how do we get this back to you, our best player, to take a very high percentage shot or a high percentage play?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. The assist thing is interesting. I mean, here we are. It's just it's a new year. He's a new player. He's still in the evolving steps of it, which means there's an evolution to the way he's going to be guarded. And I find this stuff really interesting to track.
I'll close as we're 75 minutes in, but that's kind of why I had my subtle jabs at the top of like, I'm having I know I was pissed off 2 weeks ago. That was more about my flights. I'm having a great time watching some of this. Like, I'm having a great time being like, oh my God, like I was starting to doubt myself too that Jaden McDaniels was ever going to take a leap, right? Because they talked about it every year, like, oh, you just got to give him more time. It's like, well, a couple more years, he's going to be retired. And he finally did it. And then like the Donte thing of like, we finally pulled the trigger on this trade because we got the prize, the apple of our eye, the big apple of our eye from New York. It's like, okay, well, he needs to play better. And now he is. So, but there's other things too. Like, I know you and Chris did a podcast about last night's game. Go check that out this weekend too. But last night, the final 90 seconds or whatever was eerily similar to the Suns game, right? They just kind of fucking played around with it. They do some of the wildest half-court passes. And like, I think a lot of people, I thought last night was a pretty good second half performance. It's tough to put these teams away. They're bored, whatever. But all of a sudden they're up 13. It's like, okay, here we go. And then they did the same stuff with inbounding and all this shit. They're turning the ball over in transition. And last night was the same thing as the Suns game, but they won it. So how are they going to solve that? Like, there's still a lot of things that concern me about this team, but that's why I love covering 82 of it. Like, the ebbs and flows, the trends, the storylines, there's still a lot of work for this team to get to, as Britt said, like a championship level thing. There's 4 months until the playoffs start. Like, I'm curious to see what the next chapter is of all this stuff for this team.
This is awesome, man. Appreciate you doing it. I like these episodes that aren't as
the newsletter
individual game specific. Coming up next on the show will be Monday with Jace. We will talk with Jace about what happens over the weekend in that Clippers game, and then also just get some from him on this week in New Orleans as well. I'm sure you guys can follow Kyle in the meantime at Kyle Theige, and we appreciate you listening to many episodes this week, New Orleans week here on the pod. It was fun. I'm excited to go home. Appreciate you doing it, Kyle. You got any final thoughts?
No, I mean, the reason you're in New Orleans is because, again, I know we say it all the time and it gets boring, but supporting those who support us. So Dane funds all his own travel. So if you're in the holiday spirit, go get a 6-pack, a second apron somewhere, buy some beer, support Falling Knife, support some of our other sponsors. I know as a listener of pods, I don't always love ad reads, but it's like, I know that they're important to keep doing what we're doing. And I think this week, an interesting week, 2 Pelicans games that had a lot of good and some bad, having you and Chris there in the locker room allows us to get these quotes and these real understanding of what's going on rather than just AI bullshit of like, well, they won the game and this was the box score. So thank you.
Yeah, no, and I hear that on the ad read piece of it. It is just the only way to, if I didn't have that, I wouldn't be able to do it, So to that end too, if your company feels like it could benefit from partnering with Pod, we're always open to that and trying to add some more for 2026 here. So yeah, you can always reach out to us at DaneMooreProductions at gmail.com, and Kyle or I would love to talk to you about what that looks like. But yeah, main thing is it means a lot to listen, and that helps us out too. So yeah, that's all I got. Until Monday with Jace, he's Kyle. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hot so you can find me in the crowd, yeah. Don't let standards ever bring you down, yeah. Hope you dancing.